Sawadee How's everybody doing? Chaikong Sensei in the house, aka Jimmy Ninja, aka Young Miyagi. What's up? I wanted to get through my first and second chapter of Eternal Energy and Information by Jimmy Ninja Chaikong. That's me. I'm going to go ahead and put together a little video that people can actually watch on YouTube, and I didn't save the first video, so I'm going to do it again. This is my first book. It's 8 years in the making to actually get to a cover. I know it's almost pamphlet size, but quality over quantity, and again, it did take me 8 years to get this far. I'm really proud of this. Something that was unplanned. I did try to write several books and manuscripts and things over the years, but this is the one that I actually completed. And one of my also um, dream come true is it was a Balboa Press, a division of Hay House. Hay House Publishing is the same publishing company that has published some of my heroes like Dr. Wayne Dyer, who I used to hang out and talk with quite a bit in Barnes and Noble in Boca Raton, Deepak Chopra, Louise Hayes, who Hay House Publishing is named after, um, um, Abraham Hicks, just people that I'm really a big fan of. But let me go ahead and get through this first couple of chapters for y'all, and I'm going to read a little bit of the book because it's not that long, to be honest. You can read the book in about 90 minutes. I read that one of my favorite books. It's kind of like my handbook for living, and that's Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. And that book probably took me less than a week to read, but I literally have spent the last 15 years of my life trying to put it into application. You get to see me with my glasses. I can see pretty good out here, but the words look like ants. But the back of the book, Eternal Energy and Information, is a book about life. Life's lessons seen through the eyes of an immigrant, a retired professional MMA fighter, a little bit real, a little bit spiritual, and some hypothetical guesses about what makes the cosmos and life tick. Jimmy Ninja Chaikong was born in northern Thailand with no electricity and running water, and at the age of 6 moved to West Texas and grew up to be a Texas state gymnastics champion, judo national finalist, American gladiator world champion, and all-around badass Texan. Right? What? And if you want to know where that my nickname Ninja Cowboy came from, I have that on my Reverb Nation. So look up Jimmy Ninja on Reverb Nation, and I post it all the time. But you can look it up. And I have an album, one of my last albums I did with Blind Terry Italian called Ninja Cowboy Songs and Stories. And I actually, hey buddy, yeah, my Robert, you're the man. I took Robert over at Galveston Seafood, some kimchi from Koreatown today, and went over there and had lunch with my buddy Sam. Anyway, um, so this is a big dream come true. So I want to go ahead and share the first couple chapters with you. This is the foreword of the book. I've been waiting for some time to begin my book. I don't know why. Perhaps I needed to mature to a level where I had something original to say. I've created lots of projects in my time, from songs, art, techniques for gymnastics, martial arts, stories, inventions, etc., yet nothing I've ever considered unique or original thought till now. I have made up some original things, just, I don't know. I think the original thought idea was, a little different because you read a lot and we regurgitate a lot. We're told a lot and we regurgitate a lot. We watch a lot and we regurgitate a lot. But to actually, I feel like, absorb and project new material, new ideas, that for me comes from prayer and meditation. It comes from the divine. So if you can tap into that, that's usually when you get those original ideas. If you're a writer yourself and you feel like you have that writer's block, or you're just not coming up with anything that you love, a lot of times that's because you're not tapping into the divine. So that's something you can definitely find through meditation and prayer. I spent my whole life searching for meaning and living my science as a field study of life. I've earned numerous degrees in several disciplines which have only introduced me to new things. I now have more questions than answers for, yet at this point in my 40 years I've observed a few original ideas that I think are worth sharing. I would like to thank all my teachers, coaches, friends, songwriters, and crazies that I've met along the way that have influenced my life and my story and self-image of who it is that I am. Chapter 1, The Science of Interaction and Energy. Have you ever noticed when the pool ball strikes together and plays off another, they find a way to bank off and find themselves in the goal, the hole? I have, and people are very much the same. We bounce off one another, reflecting and deflecting each other's energy as we go through life, creating our little romances and battles with each and every person we encounter, from the waiter to the girlfriend, to the minister to the father, to the mother to the brother, to the barber to the student, and to the teacher. Still don't get it? Okay, here's an example. Man, let's call him Jim, wakes up in a foul mood. His wife Christy's in a good mood, making breakfast. Jim comes out and does his angry dance. Christy then decides, Jim, you're offending me with your foul mood. I am now upset, and when I go out to my first meeting with her hairdresser, Jane, I will pass my tale of pissed offness, yes, I like to make up words, to her, and cycle of negativity will continue. Hence one ball banging into the next, affecting the next, creating possibilities of where the day will end. However, this is not a set standard. We humans are variables because Christy could have been spending time listening to her Abraham Hicks affirmations or reading her Eckhart Tolle affirmation calendar when Jim came in with his foul mood, and she could have deflected his negativity with a lesson in patience or acceptance or self realization that Jim's foul mood is his own responsibility and I will not take part in it with him, and therefore disconnecting the energy flow that was going to sink the 8 ball. This energy dynamic can be witnessed in everyday life. See for yourself, many people walk around wondering why they feel a certain way or why their day is going so badly or so good. And the reason, unless you are self aware and setting and resetting your own tempo at multiple times, you're probably one of these balls that are banged around by the cue ball. I, however, seek to be the cue ball because that is the ball setting the tempo for the game, or life, if you haven't been following this analogy. The way we interact with one another. This is so interesting if you realize the game is predicted by your ability to play it, and so is life. I, I, I want to talk about that chapter a little bit because it's really important. I'm talking about pool, but I'm really talking about how we affect each other as humans. And one of the things that probably is most common with all of us is our frustration and aggravation with other humans. So if you have that inability to control your emotions and control your aggravation, then you're controlled by these other humans. You're controlled by these other balls. But in the game of pool, the cue ball controls all the balls and the stick and the player behind it. So one of the things I think in life that's so very important is self-mastery, which I've learned through martial arts, because through martial arts I've learned to control that emotion, control my aggression, control my anger. And yeah, I will still sometimes verbally get angry, sometimes emotionally I'm feeling frustrated, but I've really learned to control what used to be a physical outburst of anger. And I'm very proud of that because there was a time when people could talk to me in a certain way and it would always result in combat. And it's been a long time since I've been that person. Now I went through these stages of where, okay, you're really angry, let's count, let's turn and walk the other way, let's do this, do that. There's many ways you can recondition yourself to act in a different way to change your patterns. And so if you find yourself easily manipulated by your emotions, by anger, by others, that should be one of your main goals. And one of the best ways that I've learned to do it is through training martial arts, because martial arts is not just about learning techniques. It's also learning how to master the mind, master the body, master your self-discipline. And so it's just important. It's a very important. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2. Now this might be a little challenging for some of you. I will say that it's very outside the box, especially for the area I live in, where most people are Judeo-Christian. I was born in a dual faith home where my mother was a Buddhist and my father was Baptist. So I always saw both, even though we were more toward the Christian side, and we were always told to focus on the Christian side. We were actually forced to focus on the Christian side, which is fine. This is the culture we live in, and people want to feel comfortable. So it tends to be whatever the majority is, that's what you do. But what I also saw was that my mother, still being Thai, her culture's religion, she still practiced. She still did aspects of Buddhism, and I kind of, as a child, didn't understand that these weren't. It wasn't okay to be a little bit of both. It wasn't until I was a little older where people were telling me how evil and wrong it was for me to do one over the other. Where I don't agree with that at all. I think it's perfectly fine for people to practice their cultural beliefs. I think that being so one-sided and tribalistic about your cultural religion is a form of racism, to be honest, because you're actually telling another culture that their values and their history and their religious practices have no value. And I don't find that as being a loving, kind thing, especially when language is our main divider. We tend to have the same principles when you look at religions all over the world. And just because something has a different name, Dr. Wayne Dyer said often that water has many names all over the world. Agua, Iso, Aquavina, hydro, H2O in science, and yet it's still water, and such is the nature of God. Chapter 2, God. I said it like that the way, I say God like that the way old time preachers pronounce it, because it draws a parallel between my version of God and the average version of the mythological God. I was born in Thailand and I came to the United States when I was very young. Buddhism is the national religion of Thailand and my mother's first religion. When we first moved to Texas, my mother was married to a GI that left her after she stabbed him 9 times for slapping me off of a table, knocking out my front teeth, when he came home in a drunken stupor. After that, speaking very little English, we needed help, and somehow one or another from Elmcrest Baptist Church started coming around to help this woman and her young son with food and general assistance living in a foreign country. Both me and my mother spoke very little English when we first came. My godmother told me recently I used to translate from my mother, and I actually spoke more Thai than I remember and that I know now. I've actually been reteaching myself, but my godmother says I was pretty fluent at the age of 6 or 7, I think, when she first met us. The trade-off for this help is that we were now Baptists. What a fascinating story. Jesus of Nazareth, born in a manger, disappears at 13 after a remarkable visit to the temple to astound wise men with his knowledge. Shows back up at 30 to defy the Jerusalem Jewish hierarchy and Roman Empire to die a horrible death and set all men free who accept him as their Lord and Savior. Shapes most of Western civilization for the next 3,000 years. It's a great story, huh? One problem, where is the proof for any of these things that have anything to do with anything relevant to my life today? Not only where did Jesus go after he was 13, and why isn't any of that documented? I have read many books that say at the age of 12 or 13, when a Jewish male is bar mitzvahed, they are declared a man, and it is at this time that they marry. And Jesus, being the intellect that he was, he did not want to marry, and he ran away to the east. So far east that he traveled through much of India and Asia, where he was heavily influenced by the teachings of someone preceded him by 500 years, the Buddha. The East's greatest spiritual teacher had crossed paths with Jesus of Nazareth, or more likely one of Buddha's disciples, at one of the many Buddhist monasteries along the way. So now Jesus, finished with his travels and missing his mother — what boy doesn't miss his mother? — returns to the Holy Land with all the newfound knowledge and healing arts, Reiki, acupuncture, hypnosis, meditation, philosophy, etc., etc., comes back preaching a new revolution and turns the Jewish establishment on its head. His charisma, stories, and courage to stand up to the man makes him a hero to the disenfranchised youth of the times, and it starts a revolution. Not that I believe this tale either, because where is the proof of any of these mythologies? All the stories have some truth to them, like Zeus and the Greek gods, and the Romans, who have been based on real characters in the human timeline. However, most of these stories are depictions or word of mouth or scrolls written hundreds of years after the actual event occurred. If I were to be born 1,000 years from now and found a book called Green Eggs and Ham, and I believe that there was such a character as Sam I Am, and he had issues with eating people's hen and pig products, I happen to think eggs and ham are delicious, yet it doesn't mean that I would believe any old story attached to them. You have to apologize my reading. I haven't read much on live, so it makes me a little bit nervous, I think. My point was, I was told a lot of beautiful mythologies about God and his word and his disciples and his desires for my life, and I came to find that after all my studies of science, archaeology, philosophy, and other world religions, that there is no substantial proof for God. I have what I consider to be a conversation with God since I was very young, yet this could be a higher consciousness or maybe just an overactive creative imagination. I don't know, and I cannot prove, no matter how much I believe in my own beliefs, yet I'm humble enough to admit that I might not know what I think I know. Yet that's okay. Who says we have to have it all figured out? I don't believe we have to know everything. What up, brother? I don't believe we have to know everything. especially the things that cannot be proved, especially when there are so many things that science has to share with us that can be proven that will take a lifetime to observe. Basically, what I'm saying is, in life, there's so much stuff that has been proven, and then there's so much stuff that's based on mythology. Why not spend more time focusing on stuff that's more factual over stuff that's more mythologically driven? The one thing that has always perplexed me, though, however, is synchronistic events. Many times in my life, things have added up to the right people at the right time, the right opportunity at the right time. This and music and the magic behind science are where I find my God. I do not believe in the mythological creator. However, I do believe in the creator that creates through the physics it created. I'll say that again because I love that term that I came up with. I don't believe in a mythological creator, but I believe in a creator that creates through the physics that it created. If the voice I hear in my head is not God, I accept it as my higher self, which can weed through all the bullshit and lead to my highest good and better decisions. What I sense and what I think might be going on in the universe is irrelevant to the fact that I am alive. I am seeking my own truth. I will not accept someone else's truth just because they say so. There are so many mysteries, so much worth of our time that are based in science. It just seems foolish to spend so much time reminiscing mythology. My hope for the world is that we will awaken to the realization of truth over fantasy and begin spending more time learning science over fairy tales, spend more time in math over superstition, spend more time in astronomy, biology, biochemistry, physics, and arts, and culturally evolve to where we are not living under the disguise of mythological worship and the fear of letting go of the old world thinking and embracing a future of reason and science, which is really not new. That was actually if you go back and watch 300, that's what separated the Greeks and the Spartans from everyone else, is that they did believe quite heavily on reason and science. And in a lot of ways, our Western society was created from that Spartan culture. It just has been misconstrued a lot because when things gain power, like the Roman Catholic Church and governments, they tend to use religion to control people in general. So I didn't put that in the book, but it's just kind of a side note. Some scientists negate the existence of any higher power, and I do disagree with this thinking because, like I said before, synchronicity has been quite obvious in my life. For example, picking up the phone and the exact person you were thinking of calling you, or looking for a specific producer to take us from a local act to a national act, and boom, they're there. Life is magical, yet that magic is not based in some folklore or superstition. It is based on the synchronicity of science, the atomic molecules, and the intelligence that lives within all things. God is everywhere and in everything, right under your nose. It is your nose. And that's chapter 2. I'll come back with the other chapters on another live. I appreciate you guys listening today. You can Venmo me at Jimmy Ninja. That's Jimi Ninja. If you want me to send you a book, it's $15, including your shipping and handling. Or come into Jimmy Ninja Entertainment, 1828 South Clack, and pick up your own copy for only $10. I appreciate you guys so much. So what the cop, and we'll see you soon, all right?